Mrs. Cole, answer the question. How long have you known your husband is not the father of that child? That was the first sentence that cut through the courtroom. Judge Harris hurled it across the room like a hammer crashing down. My wife, Lena, froze. The confidence drained from her face, and suddenly every eye in the courtroom locked onto her, like a spotlight had just flipped on. I sat there in silence, hands clenched together, watching the woman I married begin to fall apart. On the judge's bench lay an open envelope, the DNA results, glowing under the courtroom lights like a blazing warning flare. 15 years of marriage, 10 years of fatherhood, all crumbling in seconds. And trust me, this is just the beginning. If this grabbed you, follow the story, leave a comment, and stick with me. It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. Morning in the Nashville suburbs feels paid for. Fresh stripes in the grass, a flag popping on a porch, someone's mower humming like a steady heart. I swing past Walmart, park under a spindly tree, eat lunch in the truck, chips, a warm coffee, a voicemail about fryers. Ordinary as a blanket a man pulls over his bones. Lena texts a thumbs up from downtown. Meetings, spreadsheets, the same decent grind. After work, I throw the ball with Ethan until my palm burns and his laugh knocks the day off my shoulders. We grill cheap steaks. We argue about paper towels, buy both brands, call it love. Sunday is the pew we always sit in, styrofoam cups, a sermon about truth soft enough to miss. Back home, detergent in the air, oven heat rolling out like comfort. I fix a squeaky hinge and feel useful. She kisses my cheek in passing. Ethan crashes on the couch with his glove like a shield. It looked like stability because we both stared at it hard enough. That night, on my way to kill the porch light, her phone blinked on the island. Bright, private, a quick smile reflected in the glass before she turned it face down. The AC whispered. A van coughed past. The paint on our life didn't peel. It bubbled. On Tuesday, it broke. Tuesday, the crack showed. I opened the door and found Lena leaning over the kitchen island, mouth tilted into a private grin. Her screen lit her face the way candles light a confession. When she spotted me, the smile died first. The phone flipped face down like a coin. "Just work," she said, the two safest words in a married woman's dictionary. I told myself she was tired. Told myself I was tired. We ate in small sentences. Ethan talked about line drives. I nodded like a man keeping his roof. Her phone buzzed against the counter and she slid a napkin over it. Polite, modest, secret. I asked what was funny. "Client stuff," she said, rinsing a glass that was already clean. The AC hummed like it knew something. The ice maker clicked, then swallowed its own sound. Later, in the bedroom, she set the phone screen down again and said she had emails. I stared at the ceiling fan, its blades turning slow as a clock that doesn't want to tell you the hour. She laughed at nothing. The phone buzzed again. Twice. One smile, one neat lie, and a thin seam in me split. I lay there counting vibrations, not sheep, and felt respect slip a notch. Tomorrow I'd ask her straight. Once, clean, no theatrics. And I already knew the answer I feared most. Not her words, her eyes. New blouses came home in bright store bags, a sharper heel. Perfume that didn't smell like Lena ever did. Expensive, citrus cutting the air. She started coming back late with client meetings, keys tossed on the counter like alibis. The phone never left her hand, to the mailbox, to the bathroom, to the pillow. Dinner cooled while she stood in the hallway whispering, then said she wasn't hungry. I checked her shared calendar. Times didn't match the stories. A man knows the feel of a lie the way a carpenter knows warped wood, by the sound it makes when you press. "Is there someone else?" I asked, plain, steady. Her eyes flared, then went cold. "You're paranoid," she said. 2 words, flipped like a switch that made me the problem. The perfume lingered after she walked away. The roast tasted like cardboard. Ethan asked if we were okay, and I told him yes, because that's what fathers do when they're not sure what else to do. I stared at my plate and felt something tighten in my chest and loosen in my respect at the same time. I wanted to chase her down the hall and turn this into a fight big enough to end something. Instead, I swallowed it, because the next thing out of her mouth would tell me everything. "Explain," I said. Not loud, not begging. A single word, slow and level. She smirked like I'd misplaced a tool. "Explain what, Mason? You're always at work." The line slid out polished, a sentence rehearsed in mirrors. She brushed past me, the new perfume following like a stranger. The bedroom door shut hard enough to shake the picture frames. I stood in the hallway with my hands open and empty, feeling a little ridiculous, like a man who brought a receipt to a robbery. I waited. The house hummed. AC, fridge, the soft tick of a vent. My palms wouldn't stop sweating. I ran through every moment that could make me the bad guy. Overtime, missed games, the tired silences after midnight. Maybe this is what men do. We inventory our failures and call it fairness. She didn't come back out. I didn't knock. I walked to the kitchen, stared at the dark window over the sink, and saw my own face looking older than 44. Every question I could ask would buy me the same answer and sell me a little more dignity. So I stopped asking. No more debates. No more work, and you're paranoid. I would stop arguing with a closed door and start talking to the only thing that never lies. Tomorrow, I'd begin with the phone records. The garage held the kind of quiet a man can think in. Cold concrete, the smell of oil and grass clippings. I opened my laptop and the blue light cut through the dark like a blade. Carrier website, username, password, two-factor code. Then the list rolled up. Calls, texts, timestamps, our life translated into numbers. One number kept coming back. Morning, lunch, midnight. Over and over like a drum line I hadn't heard before. I wrote it down, wrote the dates, circled the late nights she said client meeting. The pattern felt too neat, too often, too close to home. My heart thudded in my ears. I tried to hear my own doubt and couldn't. Doubt doesn't leave tracks. This did. I copied the number into my phone, stared at it long enough to feel stupid. Then I hit call. 2 rings. A male voice. "Hello?" I didn't say my name, didn't breathe. The voice tried again, casual, like he knew who he expected to hear. "Hello?" I hung up. The laptop fan whined. Somewhere in the house a pipe ticked like it was cooling down after heat. All the oxygen in the garage felt used up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from certainty. The number was real, the man was real, and whatever story I'd been told was about to get audited. I set the phone down like it could go off. My chest worked hard for air that didn't taste right. The hallway inside was empty. No TV, no footsteps, just a house pretending to sleep. I thumbed open my notes app and typed myself a message. Need proof. 4 letters that felt like a switch. I stood in the kitchen and flipped through photos stuck to the fridge. Ethan in a Little League hat. Lena with a birthday candle. Me with a grease stain on a polo, smiling like a man who believes what he's told. My palms were wet. I wiped them on a dish towel that smelled like lemon and told myself the truth. Feelings don't win. Evidence does. I thought about asking her again, cornering her with the number, pushing until something broke. But I knew how that movie ends. Tears. Anger. A new story with just enough detail to feel right. A week later, I'd be the one apologizing. I opened the laptop again and searched. Private Investigator Nashville. Scrolled past ads and gimmicks until I found a name with an office not far from my side of town. Rick Morales. Old school website. Too plain to be lying. I wrote the number on a sticky note and stuck it to the screen. Tomorrow, I'd stop arguing with shadows. Tomorrow, someone who hunts the truth for a living would start hunting mine. The sign above the stairwell buzzed weak and blue, one of those tired neon outlines that never quite dies. I climbed a narrow flight of iron steps that smelled like rain and cigarettes and pushed into a small office with a glass door that didn't fit right. A man stood, late 50s, square shoulders, clean shirt, hand out like he'd been expecting me all week. "Rick Morales," he said. His grip was dry and certain, the kind of shake that tells you he's not impressed by much. I told him everything. Times, numbers, the laugh that wasn't for me, the phone face down under a napkin. He didn't interrupt, just wrote, nodding once in a while the way a mechanic listens to an engine. 2 weeks of surveillance, he said. Could be less. I'll track routine, pull plates, match receipts. You keep quiet, no confrontations. We went through terms, paperwork with blanks, retainer on a debit card I'd never used for anything important. He slid me a copy and tucked the originals into a thin file with my name on it like a label on a jar. The room felt colder when it was done. I asked if it was going to hurt. He looked at me for a long breath and said, "You want the truth? The truth doesn't apologize to anybody." I signed. He stood. "Go home, Mason. Let me do my job." Walking back down those iron steps, I understood. Whatever he brought me would change everything I thought I owned. He called me on a Friday, said he had something to show. I drove over with a stomach full of coffee and nothing else. The office was the same dull blue. Rick turned his monitor and there she was, Lena, in a sports bar I knew by the neon beer signs, sitting too close to a man I'd never met. The camera caught small things, her hand on his wrist, his smile leaning in, the kind of familiarity that doesn't happen by accident. He clicked. Another frame, the bill on the table, her card woven into the leather check presenter. Our joint card, I knew the last four by heart. Click. Parking lot, sodium lights, a quick kiss that looked practiced. Click. Her stepping into a car I didn't recognize. Plate captured, time stamped, location logged. The file names were dates. The dates matched the nights she said client dinner. I didn't say a word. He didn't either. Evidence doesn't need commentary. It just sits there and rearranges your face. Click. Different night, different shirt, same man. Click. 3 hours between entry and exit at a hotel off the freeway. Click. A receipt that would show up on next month's statement. Something hollowed out behind my ribs and kept going. The part of me that wanted a mistake, a misunderstanding, died as quiet as a light going out. Rick kept his voice level. "This is day 4. He hadn't even shown me day 5. Rick clicked again. New grain, new night. A freeway hotel, the kind that sells privacy by the hour and coffee by the lie. The camera caught Lena at the side entrance with a different man, different build, different car, plate clean in the frame. The door swallowed them, and for 3 hours that exit didn't open. The timestamp on the footage lined up with the same stretch of time she'd called late with clients. Rick's voice didn't change. Ran the plate. He pulled a tab on his screen. LinkedIn, Facebook, family photos with a Christmas tree and 2 kids in matching pajamas. Sales professional, married. A backyard with a trampoline and a dog named Duke. The bio said he loved faith, family, and SEC football. I felt my jaw set in a way it hadn't since fights in high school. Click. The lobby camera caught them leaving separately, the choreography of people who've practiced not getting caught. I waited for the punchline. Some mistake, some cousin, some emergency. There wasn't one. Rick looked at me like a doctor delivering a scan. "It's not just one, Mason." Something in me stopped bargaining with the universe. Not a phase, not a rough patch, not a single bad decision. A pattern. I stared at the parking lot lights and thought about vows, about math, about the kind of man who smiles for Christmas cards and books rooms by exits. Rick slid a new folder across the desk. Paper, not pictures. "You'll want to sit for this." Spreadsheets, bank pulls, card statements from the joint account. Hotels, 8,000 over a year, neat as fence posts. Weeknights, the occasional Sunday. Restaurants, 4,000, not counting tips. Gifts, 1,000. Jewelry I never saw, something from a boutique that wrapped purchases in little black boxes. Each line item matched a night in his log like a confession in numbers. I ran a finger down the totals and felt heat crawl up my neck. The same month she spent $600 at a hotel, the mortgage hiccuped a week late. The same week she dropped $250 on a steakhouse. Ethan asked for a new bat, and I told him to wait till payday. I had called it budgeting. She called it client dinners. The truth was simpler and meaner. Our money was buying her lies and their silence. I stared at the joint account name, both our initials pressed together like a joke that stopped being funny. Groceries, gas, little league fees, then a suite off the freeway where secrecy costs more than decency. "She burned our future on strangers," I said, and my voice didn't sound like mine. Rick nodded once. "Now you have proof." I didn't feel vindicated. I felt weaponized. Rick closed the folder and sat back like a man who knew the next step would land hard. "You need a paternity test," he said. "Clean. No padding." I waved it off too fast. "The boy is my son." The sentence came out like a reflex, not a belief. Rick held my eyes, didn't flinch, didn't stack on reasons. He let the words sit there between us, DNA, sharp as a nail on a church pew. The room pressed in, the neon buzz outside, the AC vent clicking as it cooled. I heard myself breathing through my nose like I'd just run somewhere and found nothing waiting. Everything in me wanted a different exit, an apology, a confession, a time machine. What I got was silence and a simple choice: keep protecting my feelings or start protecting my life. Rick slid me his card again, a corner lifting off the laminate like it had done this before. "You don't have to like the truth, Mason," he said. "You just have to know it." I pocketed the card, stood up on legs that weren't steady, shook his hand like a man grips a rail in rough water. Driving home, the word wouldn't quit. DNA, DNA, DNA. That night, I knew I wouldn't sleep. The ceiling looked farther away than usual. The clock ticked like a leaky faucet. I lay on my back and lined up months in my head. When she said she was late, when she called from the doctor, when we told our parents at Sunday dinner. The math limped. A week here, 10 days there. The story didn't sit straight when I pressed on it. I saw Ethan's first steps in the hallway, his first haircut, the little league grin with the gap tooth. I felt the last hug we'd shared, his arms small but sure, his trust heavier than any mortgage I'd ever carry. My throat went dry. I swallowed and it hurt. Feelings don't win. Evidence does. I told myself that out loud, quiet as a prayer I didn't want anyone to hear. I picked up my phone and typed paternity test kit, scrolled past ads that felt like scams, found one with a lab I recognized and instructions even a tired man could follow. My thumb hovered. I thought about what this would do to him, to me, to the lie we'd been living. Then I remembered the hotel receipts, the napkin over the phone, the word Rick had dropped like a weight. I hit order. A confirmation pinged. Morning would bring a tracking number, and soon after, a box on my porch. Doorbell. A small brown carton on the mat, plain as bread. I brought it in like it might break, shut the door soft, and set it on my desk. The house was quiet in that way that can hear your thoughts. No TV, no footsteps, just the compressor on the fridge starting and stopping. I slid the drawer open, hid the box, then pulled it back out. Hiding wasn't going to save me. My hands shook peeling the tape. Inside, swabs, vials, stickers, a prepaid envelope, instructions printed in big, patient letters. No drama, just steps. I read them twice. It felt like holding a tool you don't want to use but can't put down. The word from last night echoed. DNA. Cleaner than hope, colder than fear. I told myself a sentence I could live with. Truth beats comfort. I said it again until the words sat steady. The house kept pretending nothing was wrong. Outside, a delivery truck sighed and moved on. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog barked like it had answers. I packed everything back in place and shut the drawer. My reflection in the dark monitor looked older, but clear. This wasn't about punishing her. It was about not lying to myself. After school, I'd ask Ethan to help with a science project. Tomorrow, the envelope would be on its way. "Hey, buddy," I said when he dropped his backpack by the door. "Want to help me with a science experiment?" His eyes lit the way only a 10-year-old's can. "Cool. What is it?" I kept my voice even. "DNA, spit and swabs, school-type stuff." We washed our hands like the paper said. I opened the kit slow, lined up the pieces. He asked questions I didn't answer, not because I wouldn't, because I couldn't without breaking something we couldn't fix. I swabbed my cheek, sealed it. "Your turn," I said, and he grinned like we were building a rocket. He held still, trusting, and I felt a knot rise in my throat. "Thanks, Dad," he said, bright and easy, the words sliding under my ribs like a blade turned backward. I labeled the vials. He pressed the stickers down with his thumb and smiled at the satisfying click. We tucked the samples into the envelope together. He made a drum with his palms on the counter while I sealed it shut. "Does it tell us our superpowers?" he joked. "Maybe it tells us we're stubborn," I said, and we both laughed a little too long. He jogged off for homework. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, feeling the weight of paper and a decade. Tomorrow morning, I'd drop it in the mail. Then the waiting would start. I spent lunch breaks in the Target lot, engine off, heat creeping through the windshield. Same spot under a crooked light pole, same routine, refresh email, stare at nothing, refresh again. I told work I was handling vendor issues. I told myself to breathe. At home, I avoided Ethan's eyes. He'd ask normal kid things. Pizza night, new glove, and I'd answer like a man reading lines he didn't write. Lena came home later than late. "Client deadlines," she said, setting her bag down like a period. I didn't argue. I took out the trash, ran the dishwasher, listened to the house pretend it was fine. In the garage, I kept a folder and filled it. Receipts, bank screenshots, dates in my handwriting. Numbers don't panic. Numbers don't lie. Nights were the worst. The AC whispered. The ice maker clicked. I lay there counting the small sounds of a house that used to feel safe. I told myself 3 rules. No fights, no accusations, no tipping my hand. Let the lab speak. Let the facts do what feelings can't. Every evening ended the same. I'd check the tracking, check my inbox, check the clock. Ethan would breathe steady through his door. Lena's phone would glow, then go dark. And I'd ask the same question into the quiet. Is it here yet? It arrived mid-shift, parked in that same Target lot, fries cooling on the passenger seat. Subject line plain as gravel, paternity test results. I locked the doors without knowing why, like the bad news might try to get out. My thumb shook. My heartbeat moved from my chest to my ears. I opened the PDF. The letters blurred, then sharpened. Lab header, case number. A forest of words designed to sound scientific and not human. I scrolled past terms I couldn't feel, past tables with numbers that didn't care about me. My mouth was dry. My hands felt far away. I kept scrolling because there's always a bottom line. There it was. Clean, centered, final. Probability of paternity, 0%. Nothing else in the car moved. Outside, carts clicked together, 2 at a time. A kid yelled for candy. The sun kept doing its job. Inside, a part of me fell through a trapdoor I didn't know was there. 10 years of firsts, first steps, first haircut, first Little League hit, went silent like a TV pulled from the wall. I tried to swallow and couldn't. I closed my eyes and saw the envelope, the swab, his grin. I thought I'd feel rage. I didn't. I felt erased. When I finally breathed, I knew what came next. Evidence wins. I called Rick. Then I Googled a divorce lawyer. I didn't start the car. I didn't move. The world went dim like someone turned the volume down on life. No carts, no horns, just a hollow ring in my ears. Sweat slid cold down the back of my neck. My hands sat open on my thighs like they didn't belong to me. Then the pictures came, backward and fast. Ethan's first steps on the hallway rug, his hair spiraling off the barber's cape, the wobble of his first bike, the chalk dust on his Little League pants, the night he fell asleep on my chest after the flu. Each memory jumped, bright as a match, then dropped into water. I tried to swallow. Fire in my throat. The PDF was still open on my phone, glowing like a dare. One line had done what 10 years couldn't, cut me clean through. I kept breathing because there wasn't anything else to do. I said it out loud because owning the words was the only power I had left. I went from dad to nothing in one sentence. I stayed until the sun slid lower and the car got hot again. Then I closed the file. I wiped my palms on my jeans. I picked up the phone. Time to stop dying in place. Time to move. He answered on the second ring. I told him. No ornaments, no pauses, just the number and the sentence. 0%. Rick didn't fill the silence. He let it sit, good and heavy, like a weight on a broken bone. 5 seconds, maybe 6. Then, you need a lawyer, today. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. Something in my spine clicked back into place. I asked for a name. He gave me one. Carver, downtown, straight shooter. Book it now. Bring everything. Tomorrow morning, I said. Good, he said. And Mason, stop asking her anything. From here on out, you talk to me or your attorney. You don't tip a hand you're about to play. We hung up. I opened notes and wrote a list. DNA report, birth certificate, bank statements, PI photos, phone logs, the hotel receipts with dates underlined twice. Evidence, not feelings. I gathered what I could from cloud accounts and email, sent copies to myself, printed what mattered at the office supply store down the street. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the shape of a plan had settled over the panic. Same house, same door, different man walking through it. I wasn't waiting to be lied to anymore. The gears had started turning, and this time they were mine. His conference table was all wood and purpose. I spread the files until there was no table left. Photos, call logs, bank statements, hotel receipts, a printout of the DNA report, Ethan's birth certificate with my name on a line that now felt like a bruise. Carver slid into the chair across from me, sleeves rolled, eyes fast. He read like a man skimming for fire, post-its landing on pages, dates underlined, totals boxed in ink. "Private investigator thorough?" he asked. "Very," he nodded. "Good. We build with stone, not sand." I handed him the timeline I'd written in my own hand. He adjusted 2 entries by a day, then pushed it back. "You're organized. That helps." He tapped the DNA result, then the receipts. Paternity is a sledgehammer. Dissipation is the nail gun. Together, we frame the whole case. He leaned back. "Here's how we proceed. Today we file 2 actions: fault-based divorce for adultery and a petition to disestablish paternity. We request court-ordered DNA to shut down any privacy objections. We secure temporary orders on the house. We lock the finances. From you, no confrontation, no warnings, no speeches. Let the paperwork do the talking." I breathed for what felt like the first time all week. Carver capped his pen. "Mason, this is a strong case." "Do it," I said. He stood. "We're filing in an hour." I walked out lighter, not happier. There's a difference. The filings would hit her desk before close of business. By sunset, the truth would have a sheriff's seal on it. Carver called at 3:12. "She's been served." I pictured the envelope landing in her office like a quiet bomb. Divorce for adultery, petition to disestablish paternity, motion on the house. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Voicemail from Lena. "Mason, we need to talk, please." I didn't press play again. I didn't text back. No contact isn't cruelty. It's clarity. On the way home, I stopped for new deadbolts. The cashier didn't ask, and I didn't offer. In the driveway, I checked the mailbox and found nothing except coupons and a water bill. Inside, I laid everything I owned of this fight on the kitchen table. Rick's photos, the logs, the bank pulls, the DNA, the birth certificate, a yellow pad with Carver's instructions in block letters. Evidence only, zero discussion. Her perfume still lived in the hallway, but it didn't live rent-free in my head anymore. I changed the locks, wiped my hands on a shop towel, and put the old hardware in a Ziploc like evidence from another life. The house sounded different. Same walls, new terms. The phone buzzed again. "Mason, please. I can explain." Explanations are stories you tell when documents don't like you. I opened a fresh folder and labeled it Court. Copies went in. Originals stayed flat. I wasn't asking permission from the truth anymore. I was dragging it into daylight and making it stand up. Tomorrow, her lawyer would call, and I'd be ready to answer with paper, not pain. Ms. Doyle opened with the voice of someone used to winning. "Let's be practical," she said. "Primary custody to Lena. Standard child support. Assets split roughly 50-50. She stacked each demand like coasters, neat and casual, as if the last 10 years were a clerical error I should pay for. Carver didn't blink. "We're practical," he said, tone flat enough to cut. He tapped 2 documents with the back of his pen, the court-ready DNA report and the spreadsheet that bled $13,000 in hotels and dinners. "We have paternity results. We have dissipation. Your client concealed affairs and spent marital funds on them." Doyle's smile thinned. "Regardless of biology, he acted as a father for a decade. Best interest of the child. Equitable estoppel." "Fraud trumps estoppel," Carver said. "And we'll prove the fraud. She hid partners. She can't name the biological father. If we try this, the record will say that out loud. Silence rolled around the table. I watched Doyle measure the cost of daylight. She slid a legal pad forward, then back. If you insist on litigating, we'll see you in court. Carver stood. We insist. We walked out without a handshake. In the hallway, my heartbeat matched my footsteps. No more fog. No more maybe. We weren't negotiating a marriage anymore. We were opening a war. Next stop, discovery. Paper became the language we spoke. Requests, responses, exhibits, subpoenas, boxes with my name in black marker. Doyle tried to saw the case in half, filed a motion to exclude the private DNA test, called it invasive, improper, unreliable. Carver had the reply ready before I finished reading the motion. Fine, he said. We'll do it the clean way. He filed for court-ordered testing, chain of custody, lab of record, no argument left to hide behind. The judge signed it like he was stamping a passport. Date, time, location, no drama, just procedure. My stomach still flipped. While the clock wound down, we traded documents until the copier begged for mercy. Phone logs matched receipts, receipts matched Rick's timestamps, timestamps matched the nights I ate alone. Doyle sent photos of birthday parties and school art to paint a mother's heart. Carver stapled them to the dissipation spreadsheet and didn't raise his voice. The official lab took our samples under fluorescent lights, forms, signatures, sealed envelopes. I watched the technician label vials like he was numbering bullets. On the way out, Carver said, "Now we wait, but not for long." Back home, the house felt like a witness. I filed everything by date and tried to sleep on top of the quiet. When the court report hit the docket, there wouldn't be room for feelings, only facts. And the next hearing. Fluorescence made everything look colder at the lab. Forms, signatures, IDs flat against the counter. The technician swabbed my cheek, labeled the vial with a number that didn't care who I was. Chain of custody sheet slid across. The supervisor signed like a notary of reality. I watched the envelope seal. No doubt. No loopholes. Just science in a straight line. Days later, Carver called me in. We sat side by side at his table the way men sit in pews. He opened the court report without ceremony, ran one finger down the page, and let a small smile escape like pressure from a valve. He pushed it to me. I found the line I already knew was coming and still wasn't ready to see. Probability of paternity, 0%. Clean, centered, final. The second nail in the same coffin. I exhaled like I hadn't in months. Not relief. Something heavier that finally found the floor. Carver nodded. Now it's not your test. It's the court's. Evidence didn't just exist. It had a badge. He outlined the next hearing in sentences that fit on one page. No speeches, no moral lecture. We would present DNA, dissipation, the pattern. Let our counsel argue estoppel. Let the law weigh fraud. I tucked the report into my folder. The hurt was still there, but it had a spine now. Tomorrow wouldn't ask what I felt. Tomorrow would ask what I could prove. Sleep wouldn't come. The house sounded like a church after everyone leaves, just the AC breathing and the old wood remembering footsteps. I sat at the kitchen table under a yellow bulb and stared at Ethan's baseball glove, the pocket shaped to his hand. I touched the laces and finally cried, a quiet, ugly thing that didn't need witnesses. When it passed, I opened a spiral notebook and wrote 4 words in block letters. Evidence wins, feelings don't. Under it, I listed the order of battle, DNA, bank statements, PI photos, the timeline in my handwriting. I folded the page and slipped it into my jacket pocket like a talisman that worked because I said it did. I laid out the suit I hadn't worn since a funeral, pressed the tie flat with my palm, checked my folder again. Certified copies, originals in plastic sleeves, sticky notes tabbing the parts that hurt. I set 2 alarms. I drank water. I walked the hall once, stopped at his door, and kept walking. The grief didn't leave. It learned to stand in line. I turned off the light and stood in the dark until my breathing matched the room. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be a husband begging for truth. I'd be a witness under oath. Ms. Doyle stood like she owned the air. Lena has been the primary caregiver, she said, voice smooth enough to butter a brick. Mr. Cole works long hours. He's often unavailable. Stability lives with the mother. She stacked phrases like sandbags, one after another, until the picture of me looked like a paycheck with shoes. I felt the room lean her way. Judge Harris made small notes, nodded once, and the silence that followed had the weight of a verdict. She kept going. School pickups, doctor visits, parent-teacher nights. He's committed to his career, she said, as if being reliable was a crime. I stared at the table, knuckles whitening, counting breaths. Beside me, Carver didn't move. He let her build her house brick by brick, eyes on his legal pad like he was waiting for weather. Best interest of the child, Doyle said, landing the phrase like a gavel. It was good theater, and the court likes a neat story. For a second I felt that old drown, like truth can't swim in family court, like I'd lose even with the facts. Carver's pen stopped. No whisper, no tap, just stillness. Your Honor, he said finally, quiet as a trigger sliding into place. He'd waited for her to finish the picture. Now he would show the frame she'd hidden. Carver rose without clearing his throat. Before custody or support, he said, the court needs to see this. He handed the packet to the bailiff like it was a routine delivery. The room shifted. Paper moved. The bailiff crossed to the bench, and Judge Harris took the file with both hands, the way you hold something that changes things. Pages turned slow. The clock ticked loud enough to hear. I looked nowhere but forward. Across the aisle, Lena's face drained a shade, the way paint does when you wipe it with alcohol. Ms. Doyle slid a calming hand toward her client, palm down. Don't panic. The judge read aloud the headings as if to anchor himself. Lab name, case number, chain of custody. Then he paused on the line that mattered, eyes staying there just long enough for everyone to find their own heartbeat. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Probability of paternity, 0%. It didn't echo. It landed. The kind of word that ends a road. The gallery went breathless. Doyle's jaw set. Lena blinked too many times, hunting for a story that could stand in that light and not melt. Carver didn't smile. He simply met the court's eyes as if to say, now we can talk about best interests. I exhaled, once, steady. The fuse had burned down. The explosion was quiet, but total. Ms. Doyle didn't blink. Equitable estoppel, Your Honor. Best interest of the child, she said, sliding the words across the rail like she owned them. He acted as a father for 10 years. Biology can't erase a decade of stability. She made it sound noble, turning my paycheck into a duty and my silence into consent. Carver stood with the slow calm of a man loading one round. Intentional fraud, he said. Multiple partners. Concealment. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. She knew there was doubt and hid it. She spent marital money on affairs while letting my client sign a birth certificate built on a lie. He cited cases in plain English. Decisions where courts refused to reward deception. Where best interest didn't mean best lie wins. Judge Harris frowned like the bench itself got heavier. Doyle pressed again. Pictures of birthdays, school projects, a mother's routine. Carver pressed back. Timestamps, receipts, surveillance. The court ordered DNA that said 0 like a bell that won't stop ringing. This isn't punishment, he said. It's the law refusing to subsidize fraud. I stared down at my hands and bit the inside of my lip until the taste turned metallic. The room wasn't a family anymore. It was a field. Morality wasn't up for debate. Only facts were. And facts brought steel. Judge Harris tapped his pen once, like a referee stepping toward the center. In America, a lot of people want DNA tests at birth. Standard, automatic, no argument. They say it protects everyone from exactly this. Others say it breaks families before they start. I don't know. I just know what a PDF did to my chest in a Target parking lot. Paternity fraud isn't a tweet. It's a life. Rent, birthdays, ball games, a man signing up for a job he was never told he didn't qualify for. Men talk about it in parking lots and break rooms because saying it at home sounds like betrayal. Women talk about it softer, if at all. And kids? Kids are the only ones who didn't pick any of it. They're the ones who wake up in a story full of adults arguing over the dictionary. Should a non-biological father pay because he showed up? Because his heart kept its promise even when biology didn't? Or should the truth get the last word, even if the truth cuts flesh? Justice for the kid versus justice for the truth. What do you put on the scale first? I can tell you what a courtroom weighs. Evidence. I can tell you what a man weighs at night. Guilt, dignity, and the cost of staying. You can argue policy. I'm arguing to breathe. Carver slid a spreadsheet to the edge of the table so the judge could see it without leaning. Your Honor, $13,000 in non-marital purpose spending, he said, tapping columns that didn't blink. Hotels, $8,000. Dates lined up with surveillance timestamps and calendar entries labeled client dinner. Restaurants, $4,000. Steakhouses, wine bars, repeat locations. Gifts, $1,000. Jewelry, boutique boxes. Each line item carried our joint account number like a signature I never meant to give. He walked the court through it without heat. Date, place, amount, timestamp. Receipts matched photos. Photos matched call logs. Call logs matched lies. I remembered word for word. Numbers don't argue, they stack. Ms. Doyle started to say something, then let the silence finish her sentence. Judge Harris looked to Lena. Do you dispute these charges? Her mouth opened, closed, a half shake of the head, eyes falling to the paper that refused to look away. Data killed the debate, not punishment, proof. Every dollar was a nail, every month, a plank, the total, a floor we could finally stand on. I felt satisfaction cut through the ache like a clean edge, bitter, necessary. Carver sat. The judge made a note, then he lifted his eyes and asked the question that strips paint off truth. Mrs. Cole, who is the biological father? Air thinned. The room waited. The judge didn't repeat himself. Lena's hands found each other and locked, knuckles whitening. A single tear made the long trip down her cheek like it had a map. She looked at the table, not at me. I'm not sure, she said. Name the possibilities, Judge Harris answered, voice steady as a scale. She swallowed. One of two men. A beat. Maybe three. The gallery rustled, paper, breath, a little sound that felt like a hiss. I closed my eyes because I didn't want to learn new faces while she was burying the old one. Pictures flashed anyway. Christmas cards that weren't mine, hotel doors that were. Somewhere behind my ribs, something collapsed in a way that didn't make noise. Carver didn't gloat. He wrote one word, unknown. Doyle tried to speak of love, of routine, of school lunches and homework, as if behavior could outrun biology, but the truth was already standing under the light. Fraud doesn't need volume, it needs daylight. Judge Harris straightened the papers in front of him like a man clearing a desk before a hard job. The court wasn't a chapel anymore, and this wasn't a sermon. It was a reckoning. I kept my eyes down, bit the inside of my cheek, and tasted iron. The lie wasn't complicated. It was crowded, and now it was on the record. The courtroom went soft around the edges and the reel started. Ethan wobbling down the driveway on a too-big bike while I ran a hand at his back. Clay dust on his knees after a line drive he wouldn't stop talking about. Math sheets under a lamp, him chewing the eraser while I pretended to remember long division. A feverish night when he fell asleep on my chest and I didn't move till sunrise because his breathing told me what mattered. His laugh echoed in my head like it had a key to every locked room in me. I bit down until my jaw ached. My hands shook and then went still. No tears came. Just that dry burn behind the eyes when a man's body decides to hold the flood like it owes someone money. The heart doesn't break loud. It caves in quiet. I kept seeing his glove on the couch, curved to fit the hand I taught to catch. That life didn't vanish. It just stepped off the map. There's no handbook for this, no pastor's paragraph, no friend's advice that closes the wound. I lost my son in a way no one teaches a man to survive. When the reel stopped, the courtroom snapped back into focus. Papers, pens, a judge about to speak. I braced for the blow that had to come next. Judge Harris stacked the files, squared them, and spoke like he was reading inches off stone. This court does not reward deception. The line didn't thunder. It landed. He found the paragraph, tapped it once. Paternity is disestablished. Air moved again. My lungs remembered their job. Ms. Doyle lowered her eyes and started writing, neat and fast, like notes could sand down a verdict. The judge kept going. Given the intentional concealment and multiple possible biological fathers, equitable estoppel does not apply. He looked at their table, not mine. Mr. Cole will not be ordered to pay child support. Something metal slipped off my neck, the weight I'd been dragging through mud. It wasn't joy. It was oxygen. Carver didn't smile. He nodded once, as if to say, "That's the law doing what the law is for." My hands stayed on the table, palms flat, like I was steadying lumber. The gallery rustled, then quiet returned. I glanced at the birth certificate in my folder, the line with my name still black, still bold, now just wrong. Freedom tastes strange when it costs a decade. The judge paused, eyes on me. "Mr. Cole," he said, "after this ruling, you have no legal relationship to the child. If you wish to seek visitation as a psychological parent, you may petition." The chain had fallen. Now came the question that would test what was left of my heart. "Mr. Cole, do you wish to seek visitation as a psychological parent?" the judge asked. I stared at the wood grain of the floor until it blurred. Ethan's laugh came back first, then his small hand in mine on the church steps, then the weight of him asleep on my chest that winter. The flu wouldn't quit. My chest tightened like someone cinched a strap around my ribs. I could hear him say "Dad" in the voice that makes a man stand up straighter, but the word "Dad" had been sawed off me in open court. Love stood on one side, self-respect on the other. There wasn't a bridge, only a drop. I lifted my eyes once to the bench. "I need time, Your Honor." It didn't feel brave. It felt like refusing to bleed on command. The gallery rustled and went still. Carver didn't touch my arm. He didn't have to. He knew the cost of that sentence. I kept my face forward, jaw set, breathing through the ache like a runner who won't stop because stopping would hurt worse. There's no good answer to that question, only the one a man can live with at night. The judge nodded and moved to the ledger that still had teeth, the money. Judge Harris squared a stack of papers. His voice stayed even. "The court finds dissipation of marital assets in the amount of $13,000. The number didn't shout. It worked. Hotel nights, restaurant tabs, gifts I never saw, each line marching in step with timestamps and lies. He kept going. "To achieve equity, the marital home is awarded to Mr. Cole. The remaining assets will be divided approximately 65% to Mr. Cole, 35% to Mrs. Cole. This is not punishment. It is balance." The words landed like blocks, settling into place. Doyle wrote fast, chin low. Lena stared at nothing. I felt the house keys in my pocket like they'd gotten heavier and somehow cleaner. It wasn't victory. It was a floor that would hold my weight. Carver leaned close enough for me to hear, not feel. "This is what evidence buys," he said. I nodded once, eyes on the bench. The judge added orders about accounts and access, dates and signatures that turned paper into consequence. I thought of the month the mortgage slipped late and Ethan needed a new bat. I thought of a steak I didn't eat and a room I didn't book. Truth doesn't pay you back. It stops the leak. The pen hit the final line. The gavel didn't need drama. Next came the door, the sun, and the life I'd have to live in that house, alone but honest. The courthouse door pushed open and the heat hit like a wall. Sun on stone, pigeons clattering off the ledge, traffic grinding past in a long, tired growl. I stood on the steps and let one breath empty me out. Not victory, vacancy. Freedom doesn't cheer. It settles like ash. Carver shook my hand once, short and square. "You did what you had to do," he said, then headed down the steps into the rush-hour river. Lena turned away without looking back, hair catching the light, walking like a person who'd just learned how heavy a secret gets when you stop feeding it. The city made noise enough for both of us. Sirens far off, a bus brake squealing, a street vendor shouting about hot dogs. I didn't answer any of it. Keys in my pocket, edges pressing the seam. The folder under my arm suddenly felt thin for what it held. A decade corrected to 0. I stared at the dome of the building, at the flag snapping hard, and wondered how a place can give you your life back and make you feel like a stranger in it. I took the stairs slow. Same shoes, different man. The sun baked the sidewalk into a clean, bright dare. Home was waiting, but not the same home. 90 days later, the clerk stamped the last page and said, "No appeal filed." Paper slid into a manila jacket and the door clicked behind me. I drove home without the radio and parked in my same oil spot on the driveway, the quiet feeling earned, not given. I fixed the backyard gate that had been sticking all summer, pulled the hinge, planed the swell, rehung it square. I emptied my side of the closet and then, just to be honest, the rest of it. Old shirts, a sweater I'd learned to dislike, a pair of heels she forgot. I hauled a black bag to the curb, tied tight. In the garage, I picked up dumbbells and let my arms shake. Sweat hit the concrete like small truths. That night, I slept 6 hours straight for the first time in a year and woke up surprised to still be breathing easy. Little routines grew skin over the wound. Coffee outside, a run to the hardware store, paying bills on time without wondering who else ate the steak. The house sounded different. Same creaks, new ownership. Peace came in thin sheets, like drywall, fragile until you learn not to lean. It wasn't happiness. It was room. Room to hear whatever news came next, and to decide what I'd do with it. The next news came the way bad news always does, through a friend who doesn't want to be the messenger. Mike called on a Wednesday. "You hear about Lena?" I told him no. He exhaled. "She tracked down one of the guys, wanted a paternity test. He lawyered up and told her to lose his number." Silence sat on the line. Then the details. "She's carrying Ethan alone now. No checks coming from anyone, no backup story that turns into money. Office manager pay doesn't stretch like it used to when there were 2 incomes and a lie. Bills stack slow, then fast. That 35% the court gave her? It bleeds. The way savings do when the math is honest and the past isn't." I didn't feel triumph. I felt the ledger balance itself without my hand on the scale. Consequences don't need applause, they just arrive and take a seat. Mike said she looks tired. I told him we all do. He asked if I was okay. I said yes, because men say yes when the real answer doesn't fit in a sentence. We hung up and the house held its breath and then let it go. $13,000 I didn't owe anymore. $13,000 she spends now, one receipt at a time. What was stolen from me, the world is making her pay back, with interest only life can charge. On Fridays, I sometimes drive the long way home and past the school. I ease off the gas when I hit the field. Kids in uniforms scatter like birds, shouts, aluminum bats pinging, coaches clapping their hands. The dirt is the same color as our driveway used to be after practice. I park across the street and keep the engine running like a promise I'm not ready to make. My fingers lock on the wheel until the leather creaks. I watch a boy chase down a fly ball with his glove high and his mouth open in a laugh I can hear through glass. It could be any kid. It could be mine. It isn't. I tell myself what I've been telling myself since the gavel fell. Forgiveness needs time, and truth needs distance. The lie didn't just take his childhood. It took mine too. The version where I was his dad without quotation marks. I can't get that back by sprinting across a parking lot with a heart full of noise. A teacher waves cars forward. Parents talk in little clusters. My ribs tighten, then loosen. I think about the word dad and how it sits in my chest now. Heavy, careful. I put the blinker on. Check the mirror. "Not today," I say, and mean it. I pull away slow, leaving the field in the rear view like a photo I'm not ready to frame. I kept the house. I kept 65%. Mostly, I kept the truth. There's no child support tied to a lie with my name on it. The paperwork says so, the court says so, and for once the numbers and the law agree with the man who paid the bills. Ethan is innocent. I don't forget that. He didn't choose any of this, and neither did the version of me that packed lunches and laced cleats. I carry both of us when the nights get long. I chose quiet over fantasy. The door locks click. The mortgage drafts on time. I cook for one and clean the plate. Some mornings I wake up and it's small, but it's real. There's nothing to hide from. That's worth more than anything I lost. Evidence beats feelings, but feelings still bleed. They stain your thoughts and then, if you let them, they dry. Freedom doesn't cheer. It settles. It lets you hear the good noise again. Coffee dripping, a gate swinging true, your own breath not asking for permission. I'm not fixed. I'm functional. That's enough to start. If you've been through this, you're not alone. Tell me what hit you hardest. Share this with the man who needs it. Follow along if you want more of the truth without the sugar. Freedom came with scars. I can live with them.